This might be one of the most emotional celebrity moments we've seen in a long time, because what has recently surfaced from a documentary connected to 50 Cent didn't just shock fans. It struck a deeply personal nerve. At the center of it all is Tameka "Tiny" Harris, the wife of T.I. And according to the wave of viral reactions currently flooding social media, the footage that's now circulating has triggered an emotional response so intense that many are describing it as overwhelming. But here's where things become more complicated and more unsettling. This wasn't just random footage appearing online. According to those claiming to have seen the broader context, what was shown wasn't accidental. It was specific, intentional, and tied to moments that had reportedly stayed out of the public eye for years. And if those interpretations are even partially accurate, it challenges the way people have viewed the Harris family for a long time. Now pause for a second, because when something like this is connected to a project involving 50 Cent, people rarely assume coincidence. He has built a reputation around being strategic, calculated, and deliberate in how stories are presented. So naturally, the conversation isn't just about what was shown, it's about why it's being shown now. And the timing has only intensified everything. The footage appears, the internet reacts instantly, and within hours, claims begin circulating that Tiny was seen visibly emotional, overwhelmed, shaken, and struggling to process what had resurfaced. Whether every detail of those reports is accurate or not, the perception alone has already taken hold. And that's enough to shift the entire narrative. Because at that point, it stops being just about a documentary. It becomes about something far more personal, private moments entering the public space, emotions unfolding under scrutiny, and a situation that feels like it's still developing in real time. So what exactly made this moment hit so hard? To understand that, you have to look beyond the footage itself. This isn't happening in isolation. It's tied to years of public attention, speculation, and a relationship that has long been under scrutiny. T.I. and Tameka "Tiny" Harris have spent years in the spotlight, presenting an image of strength, loyalty, and resilience. From the outside, they've often appeared united, capable of handling whatever challenges come their way. But at the same time, there have always been questions, rumors, controversies, and moments that led people to wonder what was really happening behind the scenes. Some of those moments faded quickly, while others lingered in the background. And that's important, because when something new surfaces, especially something visual and emotionally charged, it doesn't stand alone. It connects to everything that came before it. And that connection is what's fueling the intensity right now. Because once footage enters the conversation, everything changes. Before, discussions about their personal lives were largely based on opinions, second-hand accounts, or speculation. But when people feel like they're seeing something directly, even if it's only a fragment, it creates a different kind of reaction. It becomes less about "what if" and more about "what does this mean?" That's exactly what's happening now. As clips began circulating, people didn't just read about the situation. They watched it, replayed it, and tried to interpret it. Every detail became something to analyze. Every moment became something to question. And right in the middle of all that attention is Tiny. What makes her reaction resonate so strongly isn't just what people believe they saw, it's what that moment represents. Because sometimes, it's not only about the footage itself. It's about what it brings back: memories, emotions, situations that were never meant to be revisited publicly. Now imagine that kind of experience. Something deeply personal from your past suddenly being placed in front of millions of people, discussed, dissected, and judged without full context. That level of exposure can feel overwhelming. And that's why this situation feels different to so many people. Because it doesn't come across as controlled or calculated on her side. It feels raw, unfiltered, a moment where emotion took over. And that's what separates this from typical celebrity drama. This doesn't feel like a back-and-forth controversy or a headline designed purely for attention. It feels like something deeply personal being pulled into the spotlight in a way that's difficult to contain. But as intense as this already is, it doesn't stop there. Because as the footage continues to spread, people are starting to connect it to past events, old rumors, previous allegations, and moments that had either been dismissed or pushed aside. Now, those same moments are being revisited, reanalyzed, and in some cases, interpreted in a completely new way. And that's where things become even more complex, because when past narratives collide with new material, the story doesn't just continue, it evolves, sometimes in ways that are unpredictable. Meanwhile, T.I. remains at the center of it all. Even though the immediate focus is on Tiny's reaction, the footage itself leads back to him. Every implication, every interpretation, every discussion, it all circles back. Which raises one major question: how will he respond? Because in situations like this, silence is never truly neutral. People analyze it, they question it, they try to interpret what it means. And so far, there hasn't been a clear, direct response addressing everything that's being said. That absence is adding another layer of tension. Because now the situation exists in a space filled with emotion, speculation, and unanswered questions. The footage is out there, the reactions are growing, the conversations are spreading, but clarity is still missing. And that's what makes this moment feel unfinished. Right now, we're not at the conclusion of the story. We're in the middle of it, waiting to see whether there will be clarification, denial, or something that reshapes the narrative entirely. Until then, everything remains in motion. And that's what makes this one of the most emotionally charged and unpredictable celebrity moments in recent memory. Because now people aren't just reacting to what they saw, they're reacting to what hasn't been said. And that creates a kind of pressure that builds fast, because when the public feels like they're only seeing part of the story, they start digging for the rest. And the deeper they dig, the more complicated things become. But here's the thing: everything we've talked about so far, the history, the tension, the emotional reaction, that's just the setup. Because the real impact, the real shock, came from what was actually shown in that footage. And trust me, what people are seeing is forcing a complete reevaluation of the public image the Harris family has worked so hard to maintain. The footage reportedly captured vulnerable, unguarded moments that humanized Tiny in a way the public had rarely seen. Tears, raw emotion, the kind of pain that can't be scripted or performed. For a woman who has stood beside one of hip-hop's most dominant figures for decades, always projecting strength and loyalty, watching those private cracks exposed must have felt like a profound violation. Insiders say the reaction wasn't staged for cameras or sympathy. It was spontaneous, overwhelming, and deeply affecting for those around her. In an industry where image is everything, seeing a major figure's partner visibly broken by leaked footage crossed a threshold that many found uncomfortable, even disturbing. This moment has forced the culture to confront something larger than one feud. It highlights how modern media, especially when wielded by someone as strategic as 50 Cent, can turn private family struggles into public spectacle with lightning speed. The power imbalance is glaring. One side controls the narrative and the release schedule, while the other is left reacting in real time, often without full context. As reactions continue pouring in, the divide is clear. Some see this as necessary accountability, a way to pull back the curtain on the polished images celebrities present. Others view it as cruel, arguing that certain moments, especially those involving spouses and family pain, should remain off-limits, no matter the history between the parties involved. For Tiny specifically, this could mark a turning point. Years of standing strong beside T.I. through controversies, legal battles, and public scrutiny may have finally reached an emotional limit. The public nature of her breakdown has sparked empathy from unexpected corners, with many fans and even fellow artists expressing concern rather than judgment. T.I. now faces a difficult balancing act. As the central figure in the footage and the husband of the woman visibly affected, any response he gives will be scrutinized heavily. Silence risks being read as indifference or avoidance. A strong defense could escalate the situation further. A measured statement might calm some waters but won't erase the visual impact of what has already been released. The broader hip-hop community is watching closely. This isn't just another round of diss tracks or social media jabs. It's a moment where real human emotion has broken through the usual armor of bravado and image management. It forces everyone to ask harder questions about the cost of fame, the ethics of exposure, and where the line should be drawn when personal histories become public entertainment. As more details emerge and the footage continues to circulate, the emotional weight of this moment only grows. What started as another chapter in a long-running feud has become something far more human and far more complicated. The tears, the vulnerability, the raw reaction, they serve as a powerful reminder that behind the larger-than-life personas, the empires and the public personas, are real people with real limits. The culture remains locked in, debating, analyzing, and waiting to see what comes next. Because in this story, the emotional stakes have never been higher, and the line between content and consequence has never felt thinner. This is where everything changes, and this is where everything takes a turn no one was ready for. Because the moment that footage actually surfaced online, there was no controlling it, no filtering it, no slowing it down. It spread fast, raw, and completely uncontained. For Tiny Harris, the exposure appears to have crossed a personal threshold. Years of standing beside T.I. through public scrutiny, legal issues, and industry drama may have finally met their emotional limit. The reported breakdown wasn't performative. It was raw, it was human, and it resonated because many people recognized the pain of having private struggles dragged into the spotlight without consent or full context. T.I. now stands at a crossroads. As the central figure tied to the footage, his silence is being read in multiple ways. Some see strength and restraint, others see avoidance. Whatever he chooses to say or not say next will likely define how this chapter is remembered. 50 Cent, meanwhile, continues to play the long game. His reputation for strategic timing and psychological pressure is on full display. Whether this is genuine accountability or calculated revenge remains fiercely debated. What cannot be denied is the effectiveness of his approach. The controlled release of material keeps the public engaged while keeping his opponents on the defensive. The broader hip-hop community is divided in ways that go beyond simple loyalty. Veterans are grappling with questions of respect and boundaries, while younger voices defend the right to expose perceived hypocrisy. The debate has moved past who is right or wrong in the original feud. It now centers on how much private pain should become public entertainment in 2026. As more clips circulate and rumors of additional unreleased footage persist, the situation remains volatile. Every new leak adds another layer of complexity. Every interpretation pulls the story in a different direction. The absence of clear statements from T.I. or Tiny only fuels the speculation and deepens the emotional stakes. This moment feels different because it touches something universal. Almost everyone understands the fear of having their most vulnerable moments exposed to judgment. The tears, the overwhelm, the sense of private life being stripped away. These elements have made the story human in a way that pure rap beef never could. The culture is watching closely, not just for the next clip, but for how this plays out in real life. Will there be a public response, a legal pushback, a quiet resolution behind the scenes, or will the next wave of footage push everything past the point of no return? Right now, the only certainty is uncertainty. The tension continues to build. The questions grow louder, and the line between content and consequence has never felt thinner. What comes next could redefine not only this particular feud, but the way personal exposure is handled in hip-hop for years to come. And this is where everything takes a turn no one was ready for. Because the moment that footage actually surfaced online, there was no controlling it, no filtering it, no slowing it down. It spread fast, raw, and completely uncontained. Clips started circulating across platforms within minutes. People weren't just watching. They were reacting in real time, pausing, replaying, zooming in, trying to catch every single detail. And what they saw turned this from speculation into something far more serious. According to Viral Reactions, the footage didn't just include casual moments or harmless interactions. It allegedly showed intense emotional exchanges, the kind that immediately made people question everything they thought they knew about T.I. and Tiny's relationship. Some clips appeared to show tension, others suggested vulnerability. A few moments were described by viewers as uncomfortable to watch. Again, the full context hasn't been officially confirmed, but that didn't matter. Once people started interpreting what they were seeing, the narrative took off on its own with unstoppable momentum. One of the most talked about moments involved a scene that viewers claim hinted at a private situation being handled in a way that didn't sit right with audiences. It wasn't explicit or clearly defined, but it was enough to make people pause and ask, what exactly is going on here? And once that question entered the conversation, everything escalated. Suddenly, people weren't just watching the footage. They were connecting it to the past, old rumors, previous controversies, things that had once been dismissed as just talk. Now those same moments were being reevaluated with a completely different perspective. And that's when things got damn ruse. Because when past narratives meet new visuals, the story doesn't just continue, it intensifies. But here's the part that truly shook everyone. While the internet was dissecting every second of that footage, reports started emerging about T.I.'s wife, Tiny Harris, and her reaction wasn't quiet. It wasn't controlled. It was emotional, deeply emotional. According to insiders, the moment she saw the footage, or at least became aware of how it was being received, she broke down. Not publicly, not on camera, but in a way that people close to her immediately recognized as overwhelming. One source described it as a moment where everything hit at once, not just what was shown, but what it represented. Because sometimes it's not the footage itself that hurts the most, it's the meaning behind it, the memories it brings back, the situations it reopens. And in this case, that meaning may have been too heavy to carry all at once. But here's where things take a sharp turn. Just when it seemed like the story was about emotional impact, the first major twist hit, and it changed everything. According to a new wave of claims circulating online, the footage may not have been presented in its full context. Pause for a second, because that's critical. If what people are seeing is only part of the story, then the reactions and interpretations could be based on something incomplete. And that opens the door to an entirely different possibility, that the narrative forming right now might not be the full truth. Some viewers started pointing out inconsistencies, moments that seemed edited, clips that felt cut in a way that left out key details. And suddenly, a new question started spreading. Was this footage intentionally presented to create a specific reaction? Because if it was, then this isn't just exposure. This is framing. Think about that. Because if someone is controlling how a story is told, they're also controlling how it's understood. And in a situation this sensitive, that kind of control can change everything. But it doesn't stop there. Another detail started surfacing, and this one made things even more intense. According to a separate insider claim, T.I. may have been aware that this footage existed before it ever went public. Now, that hasn't been confirmed, but if it's true, then it raises a serious question. Did he know this moment could come? Was he prepared for it? Or was he hoping it would never surface? Because if he knew, then his current silence becomes even more complicated. It's no longer just about reacting. It's about what he chose not to say before. And that adds a whole new layer to the situation. Meanwhile, the internet continues to spiral. More clips are being shared. More interpretations are being posted, more theories are forming, and each one is pulling the narrative in a different direction. Some people believe this footage exposes something serious. Others think it's being taken completely out of context. And right now, there's no clear answer. Just noise, speculation, and a growing sense that something much bigger is happening beneath the surface. But here's the most unsettling part. Just when people thought they had seen the most shocking moments, another detail began circulating, and this one changes everything again. According to new claims, there may be additional footage that hasn't been released yet, more scenes, more context, more moments that could either confirm what people are thinking or completely flip the narrative. Now stop and think about that, because if there's more footage, then what we're seeing right now might not even be the full story. It might just be the beginning. And if that next wave of footage drops, everything could change again. Which means this situation isn't just unfolding. It's building layer by layer, moment by moment, until eventually there's no way to ignore it anymore. And trust me, what comes next might be even more intense than what we've already seen. Just when people thought they had already seen the most intense part of the situation, everything escalated again. Because the moment those clips kept spreading, being reposted, analyzed, and broken down frame by frame, the narrative didn't just grow, it mutated. At first, the focus was on the footage itself, what it showed, what it implied, how it made people feel. But then something shifted. The conversation stopped being just about what was in the documentary and started becoming about why it was released the way it was. And that's when things took a darker turn. New discussions started surfacing, suggesting that the footage may not have been included purely for storytelling but for impact, emotional impact, public reaction, and possibly even controversy. This shift forced the entire culture to confront uncomfortable realities. In the streaming and social media era, private family moments can become weapons in public feuds with terrifying speed. What was once protected behind closed doors is now fair game for mass consumption, edited, clipped, and interpreted by millions within hours. For Tiny Harris, the exposure appears to have crossed a deeply personal threshold. Years of standing beside T.I. through public scrutiny, legal issues, and industry drama may have finally met their emotional limit. The reported breakdown wasn't performative. It was raw. It was human. And it resonated because many people recognized the pain of having private struggles dragged into the spotlight without consent or full context. The footage reportedly captured vulnerable, unguarded moments that humanized her in a way the public had rarely seen: tears, raw emotion, the kind of pain that can't be scripted. For a woman who has projected strength and loyalty for decades, watching those private cracks exposed must have felt like a profound violation. T.I.'s position has become increasingly complex. As the central figure tied to the footage, every frame ultimately leads back to him. His silence is being read in multiple ways. Some see strength and restraint, others see avoidance or calculation. Whatever response he eventually gives or doesn't give will likely define how this chapter is remembered. 50 Cent continues to play the long game. His reputation for strategic timing and psychological pressure is on full display. Whether this is genuine accountability or calculated revenge remains fiercely debated. What cannot be denied is the effectiveness of his approach. The controlled release of material keeps the public engaged while keeping his opponents on the defensive. The broader hip-hop community is divided in ways that go beyond simple loyalty. Veterans are grappling with questions of respect and boundaries in the digital age. Younger voices defend the right to expose perceived hypocrisy. The debate has moved past who is right or wrong in the original feud. It now centers on how much private pain should become public entertainment in 2026. As more clips circulate and rumors of additional unreleased footage persist, the situation remains volatile. Every new leak adds another layer of complexity. Every interpretation pulls the story in a different direction. The absence of clear statements from T.I. or Tiny only fuels the speculation and deepens the emotional stakes. This moment feels different because it touches something universal. Almost everyone understands the fear of having their most vulnerable moments exposed to judgment. The tears, the overwhelm, the sense of private life being stripped away. These elements have made the story profoundly human in a way that pure rap beef never could. The culture is watching closely, not just for the next clip, but for how this plays out in real life. Will there be a public response, a legal pushback, a quiet resolution behind the scenes, or will the next wave of footage push everything past the point of no return? Right now, the only certainty is uncertainty. The tension continues to build. The questions grow louder, and the line between content and consequence has never felt thinner. What comes next could redefine not only this particular feud, but the way personal exposure and family pain are handled in hip-hop for years to come. The stakes have never been higher, and the emotional weight of these revelations continues to ripple across the entire culture. Now again, nothing has been officially confirmed, but the way people started connecting the dots didn't feel random. It felt like a pattern. Because if you look closely at how everything unfolded, the footage drops, specific clips start circulating, emotionally charged moments go viral, and the most intense reactions get pushed the hardest. Suddenly people began asking, was this edited to provoke a reaction? Because if it was, then what we're seeing isn't pure reality. It's a version of reality, a curated one. And that possibility alone changed how people started watching the footage. Now every clip isn't just being viewed, it's being questioned. What's missing? What's been cut? What context are we not seeing? And once those questions start, there's no stopping them. But here's where things take an even more intense turn. While the internet was busy debating the footage connected to 50 Cent, something quieter, but just as significant, started happening behind the scenes. At first, it was subtle, easy to miss, but then it became noticeable. People closely connected to T.I. and Tiny Harris began stepping back. Interactions that were once public started disappearing. Mentions stopped. Posts that had been visible were suddenly gone. And in celebrity culture, that kind of shift rarely happens without a reason. That's what many are now calling damage control. Think about what that means. Damage control only begins when there's something serious at risk, something that could spiral further if not carefully managed. And right now, everything about this situation feels like it's already spinning out of control. Meanwhile, Tiny remains at the emotional center of everything. According to ongoing insider claims, her initial reaction wasn't just a brief moment, it was the beginning of something deeper. Because once the footage spread, there was no escaping it. Clips flooded social media. Conversations ran nonstop. And every time she looked at her phone, the same images and interpretations appeared again and again. Now imagine trying to process something deeply personal under those conditions. Not privately, not quietly, but with millions of people watching, reacting, and forming opinions in real time. That kind of pressure doesn't just affect emotions, it overwhelms completely. And that's exactly how insiders are now describing it. Not just shock, not just sadness, but emotional exhaustion, the kind that comes from being forced to relive something repeatedly without control over how it's being portrayed. But then came another twist, one that changed the entire direction of the conversation. According to new claims gaining traction, the footage that went viral might not even be the most intense part of the documentary. Let that sink in. Because if that's true, then what the public has seen so far could be only a fragment of a much larger picture. Reports suggest that additional scenes exist, scenes that provide more context, more detail, and possibly even a different interpretation of the events. But those scenes haven't been widely circulated, and that raises a critical issue. Because right now, the narrative forming online could be based on incomplete information. And that's where things become dangerous. Once a narrative takes hold, it becomes incredibly difficult to change, even if new details emerge later. First impressions stick. People remember what they saw first, not what they learn afterward. So the question becomes unavoidable. If more footage exists, why hasn't it been released in the same way? Why are certain clips going viral while others remain unseen? Is it about timing, strategy, or something more deliberate? Because if the release is being controlled, then the narrative is being controlled too. And that means the public might not be seeing the full picture yet. But the situation doesn't stop there. Another layer has started to emerge, one that shifts the focus beyond just the footage itself. Some industry voices have begun speaking out, carefully, indirectly, but clearly enough to be noticed. One commentator pointed out, people underestimate how much editing shapes perception. Another added, without full context, you're not seeing reality, you're seeing a version of it. Those statements hit hard because they suggest something bigger than just this situation. They point toward a system, a way of presenting information that influences how people feel and react. And if that's happening here, then this isn't just an emotional moment. It's a constructed one. Now pause, because that changes everything again. Because now the question is just what happened. It's how is it being shown and why. Meanwhile, the pressure continues to build. Fans are demanding answers. They want more footage, more clarity, more context. But instead of unity, the public has split into two strong sides. On one side, there are people expressing genuine concern for Tiny and the Harris family. They argue that deeply personal moments should never be exposed in this way, no matter the history. To them, this isn't transparency, it's exploitation. As many have said, this isn't truth-telling. This is pain turned into content. On the other side, defenders of the release see it differently. They argue that if the footage is real, it deserves to be seen. That public figures shouldn't be shielded from accountability. And if the truth is uncomfortable, that discomfort is necessary. This divide isn't quiet, it's intense. What started as curiosity has evolved into a full cultural debate. Not just about this situation, but about bigger issues: privacy, consent, editing ethics, and the responsibility that comes with influence in 2026. As time passes, the conversation keeps growing more complex. Some viewers have begun noticing patterns, how certain clips are amplified while others remain hidden. That observation has fueled even more skepticism. Was the goal to tell a balanced story, or to create the strongest emotional reaction possible? The more people analyze, the more questions emerge. And right at the center of all of this remains Tiny. Her reported emotional response has struck a chord with many. For years, she has stood beside one of hip-hop's most prominent figures, maintaining a strong public image. But this moment feels different. It feels human, vulnerable, unfiltered. And that's why it resonates. Because beyond the headlines and debates, there's something deeper here. The reality of what it feels like to have your most personal experiences exposed and judged on a massive scale. At the same time, T.I. finds himself in an increasingly difficult position. Every part of the footage ultimately leads back to him, and his silence is being interpreted in multiple ways. Some see it as restraint, others see it as avoidance. But in moments like this, silence is never neutral. It becomes part of the story. Whatever he chooses to say, or not say, next will carry significant weight. Meanwhile, 50 Cent continues to operate with calculated precision. His approach, releasing information in stages, keeps attention locked in while maintaining pressure. Whether driven by personal history or strategic storytelling, it has undeniably kept the situation at the center of public focus. And that raises another important point. This is no longer just about individuals, it's about the culture itself. For years, hip-hop has celebrated authenticity, keeping it real, exposing truth, speaking without filters. But when that same energy turns inward, toward family, relationships, and deeply personal moments, it creates discomfort. Where is the line between accountability and exploitation? That question is now impossible to ignore. As rumors of additional footage continue to circulate, the situation remains unstable. Every new detail adds complexity. Every interpretation shifts the narrative slightly. And the lack of clear responses from those directly involved only increases the tension. That's why this moment feels different. Because it taps into something universal, the fear of losing control over your own story. The fear of being exposed, misunderstood, and judged without context. And that's what makes it so powerful. Right now, the internet is locked into this unfolding situation, debating, analyzing, and waiting for clarity, waiting for a response, waiting for the next development that could either confirm everything or change it entirely. Because in this story, the line between content and real human consequence has never been thinner. And whatever comes next, whether it's more footage, a statement, or a complete shift in narrative, has the potential to change everything again.